We are Rogue Media Sports.
It is the Doomsday podcast. Ed Werder, Matt Mosley. Ed, we're we're taping this right after the game. I mean, almost just right after, and still, I think our listeners and everybody still in a bit of shock at how that ended. And Ed, it's the thin margins. Just the thought of like if they don't get that touchdown, what the week's going to be like, what the storylines are going to be like, how horrible it's going to be for Dak, right?
And how horrible it's going to be for Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
They're going to be looking at 2-5 if they lose that game tonight, and it's the kind of game like almost nobody wins that game like the Cowboys did. You don't go on the road against the number 2 scoring defense in football, failed to score 3 times inside their 20-yard line in the red zone, come away with no points because of a Dak fumble, a Dak interception, and a blocked Brandon Aubrey field goal, and win that game with 3 turnovers, and you have no takeaways. Mike Tomlin's teams were 23-1 since in the last during his career there, when they have a +3 turnover differential. And so instead the Cowboys they're now 3-0 on the road. Unfortunately, they now have to come home and play the Lions. Maybe they should move that game to Detroit. But this is, fourth down, game on the line after all that's gone wrong for Dak Prescott, throwing a game-winning touchdown pass to Jalen Tolbert, who's replacing Brandon Cooks. The first time in Dak's 9-year career that he's thrown a touchdown pass to decide the outcome of a game in the final minute. Pretty remarkable stuff.
Yeah. And Ed, we have to talk about the build-up to that, though. 2 plays before that, there they are, and kind of deciding, okay, do you want the 10-second runoff? Steelers decided they wanted to keep their timeout. There's 30 seconds left. You're like, okay, they need to bang it in right here.
On the half-yard line.
On the half-yard line, second goal. And number 50 for the Steelers does like an old Roy Williams is when he was at OU play like against Texas. And Texas OU's coming up, by the way. And he comes flying through the air perfectly. His helmet hits the ball. And our man Rico Dowdle, who had a great game, tremendous game, accounted for 122 yards on like 22 touches, but he fumbles, and so Dak nearly cost the Cowboys the game, but he saved the game there. And then 2 plays later, he throws that touchdown pass. And then Ed, to add more drama to this, Tolbert was injured. It appeared on the 3rd and goal play. They tried to go to him in the back of the end zone. I think they, and again, on the 4th down play, which we can talk more about, but still, they basically used CD as a decoy, right? And to set a pick. It was somewhat of a rub route because he was going all the way across the field, and here comes Tolbert, and Dak hits him beautifully, and the Cowboys, win. And, McCarthy's going crazy over there. Shoddy, as you like to call him. Our man Brian Schottenheimer, who's been on the Doomsday podcast, he was going crazy. I think that was excited, relieved, shock. There was a lot of emotions tied up in that.
It was the first time Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl at the expense of the Steelers, and he's from Pittsburgh, and had like 30 family members at the game. This is the first time he's won in Pittsburgh. It's the first time in 4 games there that he's had his starting quarterback, and he went into this game 0-3, but his starting quarterback wins the game in the final 20 seconds with his last throw of the night. Yeah, really unique, special stories. Is Dak the first guy in NFL history to throw touchdown passes in 2 different days in the same game since the clock crossed midnight in the Eastern time zone before the game ended? I think that might be something.
I know. Elias may be able to help us out with that. All right, without further ado, we want to get into it, and we want to start hitting this from every angle. And it is. And by the way, as we tape this, Ed, not to rub it in, but it is 12:24. It is past midnight, and you will be on the air tomorrow morning at about 6 a.m. So that'll be great for you. But it is time to get the Doomsday going. Mike, please play the music. All right, it's Doomsday, and Ed, Cowboys improve to 3-2 in the unlikeliest of fashion. Again, so many things went wrong. Ed, if you think about it, even besides Dak, and we'll get to Dak's performance, but like you had linemen going down. Zach had to leave the game for a little bit. Brock Hoffman comes out there. It looks like he gets a
Tyler Guyton, the starting left tackle, was out for 3/4 of the game.
He was out of there. Yeah, and so then Nealon gets hurt pretty early in that game.
First
ends up
on defense,
has to get 3 plays in, I believe, has to get carted off. And so you're down to, like, I was asking myself, and I'm sure you're doing the same thing, like, who do they have left? Like, who are their defensive ends that are even on the roster? And Tyrus Wheat became like kind of and of course he had good and bad plays. They got him for although, man, that was a great hit he put on Fields.
Well, my question was, why do you want to knock Fields out of the game?
That's right. Leave him in there, because Kyle Allen came in, threw a gorgeous pass, didn't he? But I mean, think about who was in there. Lawson, Wheat,
Golson, Chauncey
Golston, but also Odigizua was playing. And then up the middle comes, was that Linville that one time?
Yeah, Linville
comes rolling up.
Loose.
Yeah.
And Lawson somehow gets the ball pulled away from him by a quarterback on the ground, which you never see happen.
No, that was weird. The quarterback, yeah, you're right. Quarterback reaches in there and gets that from Lawson. I'm sure he'll hear about that. But there were just so many things working against the Cowboys. But to your point from earlier, to have all those mistakes, and you can't help but look at Dak through the context of the NFL's highest paid player, and we say things going into these games like, this needs to be a Dak game. They got all these defensive players hurt. This needs to be, Dak needs to, and yet for much of the game, it was Dak that was going to lose them the game, right? I mean, all those yards, none of it would have mattered, because of you had the fumble in the red zone, you had the horrible. I mean, Ed, that's as bad a throw as you'll see from any NFL quarterback, no matter how much they make.
Second time we've had a miscommunication in the end zone between Dak Prescott, the highest paid quarterback in football, highest paid player in football, and the second highest paid non-quarterback in football in CeeDee Lamb. Remember, they had that play against New Orleans where he was running a slant and Dak on an option route threw it outside and he broke inside. Same kind of thing seemed to happen here, because CD seemed to be expecting a jump ball type. That seemed to be what he was yelling at Dak on the sidelines. Next time, throw me a jump ball.
Yeah. Somebody on Twitter. Yeah, go ahead.
Dak kind of threw him a back shoulder fade, it looked like.
Well, he threw number 26 the back shoulder fade. Yeah, that was interesting, because I was trying to read CD's lips when NBC went in there and they kind of replayed that sequence, and it did not look like he was. I started to be like, is he saying it was my fault? And I don't think that's what CD was getting at, right? And I don't think Dak even really looked up. Dak was over there looking at his looking at things. I mean, Ed, play after play, huge plays in that game. CD, like he has much of this season, and he has in the past, he disappeared for most of the second half. Now, on the decisive drive, he did show up and make how many? Because Dak was 5 for 7 on that drive. Ferguson had a big one. Lipke had the huge one. Lipke's the one who got him down there, and we've joked about, well, you just need Lipke to be, get in space. But on a play that Watt comes, flying around the end, they had the perfect screen set up, and Lipke took it down there to the near the goal line, and that was another enormous play that kind of helped put them in position there.
Well, the Cowboys overcame a lot. We talked about the turnovers, and I'll give you one more number. When Dak Prescott has more than one interception, the Cowboys are 6-14. So they overcame that. They had close to at least a dozen penalties again, and that's their third such game this season, tied with the Texans for the most in the NFL, and it's the 14th time they've had at least 10 accepted penalties under Mike McCarthy. That's the most in the NFL this year. And then they had all the attrition, the player injuries that we've talked about to compound all of that, and yet they still go into Pittsburgh and win this game coming from behind. I mean, when Dak threw the second interception, my reaction was, he needs to understand at this point what kind of game he's in and where he's playing and who he's playing, and accept that punting is okay in that situation. You have a 3-point lead. You don't need to throw it to Joey Porter and get picked off again. And then, of course, the Steelers went down and turned that into the go-ahead touchdown with the shovel pass to Freiermuth. And that looked like the Cowboys would not recover from that. But they did really do pretty well on offense throughout the game, moving the ball. And a lot of it was Rico Dowdle. And I've doubted him as much as anybody. I still don't think he's a special player. But he had his best game as an NFL player tonight. I think on the drive where they went 90 yards and he scored the touchdown on a pass from Dak in the second half, I believe he touched the ball 8 times on that drive, on that 90-yard drive. And then, of course, they went to him on when they needed half a yard on that final drive. And I think if he'd have followed Lupke, he might have scored. But he didn't. He cut back inside, and the ball got knocked out of his hands. And fortunately, Dak was alert and narrowly recovered it ahead of the Steelers defender, or that would have been catastrophic, and that would have cost them the game right there. But, just a lot of guys I thought stepped up in a situation where there was no other alternative. We talked about Tolbert had a career-high 7 catches tonight. Dowdle had the best game of his career tonight. And the defense only allowed, 226 yards?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know sometimes how Zimmer found 11 guys healthy enough to go out there and play, let alone play the right positions. But, this is an incredible victory for them. It was an eyesore of a game for the most part, which was not unexpected. That's the kind of game the Steelers want to play. That's the kind of game the Steelers, that's their identity. They win these kind of games. They drag you into these kinds of games, and then they beat you in the end. And this was the rare time that it didn't come out in their favor.
Yeah. And even Collinsworth, to your point, I remember hearing him say, you don't win against this team if you settle for these field goals. And then on top of that, they're getting field goals blocked and then turning the ball over in the red zone. So they did pretty much everything you could possibly do to lose, but they overcame it. And incredible moments for Dak down the stretch to make those throws that he made and make those plays. And Dowdle was extremely helpful. I mean, it's almost humorous at this point how, Zeke is just barely kind of, he'll get 5 or 6 carries. But I think we do need to hand it to, because we beat him up a lot. One thing that McCarthy did, even late, even on that decisive drive, when you're like, okay, they got 4 minutes left here, they're going to have to, he was still handing the ball to Dowdle. He was still trying to run the ball.
With backup offensive linemen in the game.
Correct. And on a key 3rd and 5, and you'll know what I'm talking about, to me, that was a great call, because it's it was a crack, I think it was a toss, and they easily got the first down, but it was just it was a good play call.
It was a creative play. Yeah.
It was a creative play.
Misdirection.
Yeah. You're right. I think they thought Dak was going to do something, roll out or throw, and then he goes the other direction with the pitch, and that was a good play. And it's so rare when your kicker, for instance, I think they kind of looked at that, and it looked like maybe he did kind of hit it low or didn't hit it, and that's so unlike him. And the Steelers have a penchant for blocking kicks, but there again, just time after time, Ed, it was like, oh my gosh, that's going to come back to haunt them. Okay, they didn't make it 10-9. Okay, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, and when the tight end for them, how do we say his name? They were doing that big chant, Fryermuth.
Yeah.
He's a really good player, and when he scores that touchdown, you're just kind of like, because to your point, it's not like they were going a bunch of doing a bunch of yards. It's not like Fields was playing that great of a game. I think he finished 15 for 27 for 130 yards. He did throw for a couple of touchdowns, but it's not like he was on fire really in any way. And so when they did break through and got that touchdown, you're just kind of like, oh man, that's bad. The Cowboys are now in big trouble, and yet they found a way. Another big throw was the one to Turpin. After Dak
Turpin had a big role. They figured out a big role for him to make up some of what they were going to lose without Cooks being in the lineup. I thought that was pretty innovative, and I wonder why they don't do it more often, and maybe they will after this performance tonight, because Turpin was a valuable player and a big part of their early offense. And you mentioned the CeeDee Lamb thing is really puzzling. You look at his numbers in the first half this year, he's got 21 catches, 353 yards, and 2 touchdowns. In the second half of 5 games, he has 4 catches for 25 yards and no touchdowns.
Whoa.
Crazy numbers. And speaking of numbers, we should also mention TJ Watt getting his 100th career sack, and of course it's poetic justice that it comes against the Cowboys, and it created a turnover as well in the red zone, because as we remember in 2017 the Cowboys could have picked TJ Watt, but instead they took the great Taco Charlton, and so it seemed only right to me that TJ Watt would get his 100th career sack against the Cowboys.
That's interesting. I do like it when you throw those numbers in. Ed, I did want to ask you, did you understand the Celine Dion thing? Was I the only one just kind of in the dark about that? Like what? I mean, I know those were her songs she kept mentioning, but like why were we getting her to comment on the Cowboys Steelers rivalry? Yeah, what did it have to do with anything?
Some performer from Canada is talking about the importance of these series in her life. I don't know.
Okay.
Not sure.
I mean, that was a weird one. I mean,
well,
I knew.
I guess I thought it was kind of a nice alternative. I was a little kind of Snoop Dogged out at that point, so I was pretty happy that any other entertainer was being involved in the game at that point.
Listen, Snoop was all over the Olympics, and the minute he went in that stadium, you knew he was going to be on NBC at some point.
He acted like he's a lifelong Steeler fan, yet there's all these photos of him wearing the jerseys of other teams online.
He at least was able to reference some stuff from the 70s. Although, again, as he freely admitted, he was like 3 years old. I don't think that's really when he became like some kind of huge Steelers fan. But whatever. If NBC calls and they're offering money, Snoop's showing up, and Snoop did a nice job as always. Now, Ed, I do want to say we got a few more things we want to comment on in the big picture of like where this season is now, what this means. We need to put it in context. I want to mention Marable Homes, Ed. These homes are gorgeous, and Ed, we're in the process of we're going to film. And we're going to be able to present some interiors, and that's going to be fun. We'll do a little bit of a walk around. Ed, I may try to get you to come over and just host maybe an open house or something. We'll have some fun with it. But you're gonna people are gonna love seeing, especially the interior is unbelievable. The walk up appeal of these homes is just. It'll just blow you away. It is Marable Homes. That's MARABLE. And that's marablehomes.com, and that's Blake Marable and Amy Marable, tremendous family there. Okay, Ed, let's get ready and let's have because he's doing his thing. I think our man Stretch Ed, who also does some stuff for WFAA, and like halftime of the game tonight was doing his thing on Channel 8. So it's like, I don't know what, I guess they were just talking about whatever happened in the first half. But 6-3, wasn't it 6-3 at half? So not a whole lot had happened other than the turnover. So it is time now to visit with our scout, former Cowboy scout and coach, and one of the harshest graders in the business. That is Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, it is time for Stretch Plays with Glenn Stretch Smith, former Cowboys scout and coach. And Stretch has been doing WFAA TV tonight and is now kind of settled in for the evening. And I Stretch, I just start with the end. Let's start with, and we'll talk more about Dak's performance, but on that fateful play, and which again, it almost felt like the season hung in the balance. McCarthy, there were so many things that were hanging in the balance. But walk us through, please, what exactly was happening on that play, because it certainly looked like that CD was almost a decoy. Now, I guess you could almost call it a rub route, because certainly that one guy got caught up in traffic who was trying to stay up with Tolbert. Walk us through that the touchdown that that obviously allowed the Cowboys to win.
Yeah, so before we get to that, there were some routes that I thought were well designed tonight. They took some trail routes where guys are trailing other guys and you can't bump the guy initially off the ball. And they took that last week and they were able to complete a big ball to Cook. And so I thought they built on that a little bit. Now, when you're running those trail routes, you're getting a natural rub by the guy that's leading up the field and then the guy that's trailing behind it. Well, all they did down there on the goal line was Pittsburgh started to bracket in the second half. They started bracketing CD, and so what happened was you saw the Cowboys kind of play him out, take the bracket out. Now you've got other guys, they're playing one free. So guys are one free guy in the middle of the field, free safety, and then guys are playing man coverage everywhere else. So what you get is you get guys crossing, and it really is, it's one of those things that you have to work on a lot. And so you can tell that the Cowboys worked on this. When you get guys crossing, the guy underneath usually will stair step the guy over the top, and then that'll cause a natural rub with guys trying to come across the formation, and you get a natural rub there. And when you get a natural rub, that creates some separation, and you saw that with the ability to then throw the touchdown. So it was a well-called play. Everybody in the NFL runs some sort of a mesh look, and it's almost impossible to cover that in man coverage. The other thing that it does is when you're running it in a tight red zone area, it allows you to get the football out quick, which Dallas needed to do, playing, backups at multiple positions along the offensive line. So give credit to Dak for making the throw. Give credit to McCarthy for making the call down there on fourth down. I think the thing to me that was really maddening about the football game is that Dak made multiple really, really poor decisions in the football game. Early in the game, they've got it inside the red zone. He doesn't feel the presence of being in the pocket and knowing that the pressure is coming, and he gets the ball stripped out, fumbles the ball. They don't get the field goal there. Then he comes back and makes a really poor decision on a throw in the corner where, again, CD is bracketed. Now, there were times when you're in the field when the safety can't get over the top in time, and the corner kind of lets him go, and he made, a lot of guys will call it a hole shot throw, kind of in between that coverage. We used to call it kind of a fly and die situation where you're going and you're pressing up the field hard, but you see the safety coming up over the top, you're able to choke your motor down, and he could set it in that hole. The problem is when you get in the red zone, that distance seems to really shut down. And so really poor assessment by Dak and a really bad throw on the second interception. And I think the thing that was most maddening is you get it first down and you've got a chance on the next to last drive. And I get it. You want to take a shot every once in a while, but you can't guess on the coverage. And he hauls off and slings a post in the middle of the field that gets picked off by Porter Jr. Just, I mean, really bad decisions. And so I don't want to sit here and, when we start style pointing wins, it was a win. Yes, Dallas needed a win. But when you look at the quarterback, of all the guys that had really good nights, he had the worst night. And I think that's the thing that's frustrating is knowing, look, man, you've paid this guy the lion's share of the money. He has got to go and function in those situations. And he cannot turn the football over. He can't do it. And so you got an offensive line that's makeshift because you had Guyton go down. They had to take Tyler Smith, put him out there. They had to bring Bass in and put him at guard. And so you had, you were shifting guys around. Then you had Zach had to go out and get he had to get an IV. You had to put Brock Hoffman in the game. He gets an unbelievably bad penalty for, being, first of all, you're not supposed to be in the damn game. And then you're getting a 15-yard penalty that takes your team from the minus 42 all the way back to the 27 after a critical first down. So I know I'm babbling here because offensively, I thought you saw some really good things that the Cowboys were able to do. They were able to run the football. They played 12 personnel. They spanned forward, made some catches. I mean, there was a lot of really good things. But the quarterback, I'm telling you, if he doesn't make that last throw, I mean, I'm sitting in the living room and I'm like, I'm fixing to go in here and give this guy an F because he made that many bad decisions. And so I'm not giving him F. I'm giving him a damn D for making the last throw. But he's got to quit turning the football over. His team going to have any chance at all to get it done.
Okay, I think that's all fair, and I'm fine with your babbling. By the way, Stretch, look, Dowdle had 22 touches for over 100 yards. This running game had been so bad, even just seeing them get over 100. And he had about 80-something yards rushing on 20 carries. And he had 122 yards total on like 22 touches. I guess we have to credit McCarthy a little bit because he's barely even tried the running game, sometimes because they're so far down. But I thought even with the game on the line and that last drive, he still was trying to work the run. And I thought there was one play in particular you would like was when they had 3rd and 5 and they went with that crack toss or whatever you would call that. And I thought that was a pretty good play, right? It kind of caught the Steelers and obviously Steelers, you got to respect their defense and you got to respect their pass rush. But I thought their ability to finally function and run the ball a little bit, it was extremely helpful.
Yeah, and you saw the tight ends get involved. I mean, when you're outnumbered in the box, and again, if you can, football is a numbers game, and so when you remove the tight end, but they're still playing a 4-2 box, you've only got 5 offensive linemen, so you don't have enough to block those guys. Then when you get in a situation where you do bring the tight end in, hey, he's got to get a hat on a hat now, and all of a sudden you saw Dallas do that. And to give McCarthy some credit, he did stick with the run. They had some success getting 4 or 5 yards late with the run, and it was almost like you felt like Dallas was kind of beating down a Pittsburgh defensive front that's as good as anybody in the league. I think they'd given up, I want to say 16 points all year in the second half. So the fact that you scored 2 touchdowns with an opportunity to score another one, if you don't have self-inflicted penalties, I thought showed a lot of character about about a Dallas offense that, to me, has been non-existent in the running game. And so, yeah, there was some good plays. McCarthy tried to stretch the field, wide. He was trying to get, hand the ball to Turpin some, swing the ball to Turpin some, and do some little things to get Pittsburgh running. And then once he stretched them out, then he was able to go vertical. And I thought that really was the key to winning the football game, because turning the ball over 3 times and not getting anything twice in the red zone was damn near a killer in the game, but they were able to overcome it.
Yeah, it's the Steelers almost never lose that kind of game where they're +3 in turnover differential, turnover margin, and they did lose this game, which was just kind of almost amazing, because when you look at their record with that type of thing. Stretch, on the Cowboys defensive side of the ball, I thought you were going to probably give some winning grades to some of those. Whether it be Linval Joseph, 91, Wheat. It's like Tyrone Wheat was doing some things, and then Odighizu, Golston. You just really were. And Nealon goes out like on the 3rd play of the game and can't come back, and so you really don't have. Lawson comes in there, but you don't have any real true defensive ends, and yet they generated, some pass rush. And quite honestly, they didn't give up a whole lot to the Steelers. I thought overall it was a pretty winning effort from a team that was really banged up.
Well, you mentioned guys. Tyrus Wheat, Linval Joseph. You had Carlos Watkins. Kendrick Golston, Mozzie. We know Odighizu. But I thought the key was that they played really hard and they got up the field. And to me, you saw Linval Joseph finally, blow through there on a bull rush and really cause havoc for Pittsburgh. I thought you saw a linebacking crew in Leofau, Kendricks, and especially Overshown that were really flying around. And Overshown showed his speed. He burst to go catch Fields multiple times and hurry him on those boots and waggles. So I thought defensively played about as good as you could get from a bunch of guys that, if you start naming them, everybody's going to sound like a damn owl. Who? But they got it done. And I thought the key for what Mike Zimmer did was he got off the field. Pittsburgh was 3 for 12 on 3rd down. So that's a huge improvement with a bunch of guys that, again, I don't think anybody really knew who they were. Now, you can criticize Fields if you want to for his accuracy with the ball, but I thought he made some really good throws, and I thought the Cowboys were in a couple of really good cover situations. And so I'm giving the Cowboys a defense, across the board, an A for what I feel like was an unbelievable effort. And had they gotten any kind of turnovers, would have been just an unbelievable winning effort. And so you got to give Mike Zimmer a lot of credit. You got to give the defensive staff a lot of credit, and you got to give guys that, were on the back end of this defense where you just go, again, I'm not even sure I can still pronounce his name. I don't know how to pronounce the starting corner's name. Can you pronounce his name?
Yeah, I
go ahead and give it a shot.
Aruru.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's going to sound like a bad sneeze. No, I get it. But
number 27.
Yeah, exactly. But 27 in the program and 1 in your heart. Played his ass off, and they did. The safeties, I thought did a great job of tackling. I thought they were physical at the point. And so, to me, that was the difference in the football game, is the fact that the defense just kept freaking playing, even in the adversity of getting those turnovers and getting the ball turned over. So, unbelievable effort by all of those guys. And Matt, I'm gonna finish by saying this. I didn't think you'd see Tyrus Wheat and Carlos Watkins and, Golston. And I just didn't think that you would see that we'd be calling those guys names the way you were calling them. And so to me, that speaks volumes about not only the job that they did from an effort standpoint, but the scheme that Mike Zimmer was able to put into place and go to Pittsburgh and win. It's a hard place to go win, and they got it done. So I'm going to give them all the credit on that side of the football, and I'm going to give them all the credit on the offensive line, because I thought from a patchwork standpoint, they played their ass off.
Right, half sacks for Lawson, Tyrus Wheat, who you've been mentioning, Odigizua, and Chauncey Golston. So hats off to a lot of players there. And then, of course, Linville Joseph had the one. So they did generate a pass rush. And so, a much maligned rushing defense and a much maligned defensive coordinator stepped forward here and really helped the team. And the Cowboys, again, they had to overcome their quarterback. And then the quarterback sort of finally answered the bell late. And he's got a lot of defenders, and including us at times. But I appreciate what you said, because that was, I think, if not for that throw, if not for that touchdown, we're having a completely different conversation.
Yeah. You got guys that have, that are going to have the red ass at a loss when they played well enough across the board everywhere to win the football game. And the fact that they had to, the fact that they had to do that on fourth down and overcome shows you a few things. But boy, the quarterback, he's got to get better. We're paying that guy $60 million. I'm sorry. I'm not letting up on the fact that he made some horse shit throws, and that he can't do that.
All right. Cowboys will go up against the Lions, and boy, it does not get any easier, but an opportunity to get this thing to 4-2. But for now, in some ways, they preserved the season. They preserved, the chance to try to, you're basically just holding on and you're surviving this portion of the schedule until you get some help back and get some players back. Stretch, I appreciate it. Have a great evening, and then we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bud. We'll see you, man. Have a good one.
All right, and Ed, Cowboys improved to 3-2. It would have been so dire if it had gone the other direction. Now, the Steelers, who are off to a hot start, they fall to 3-2 as well. Coming off that game, you see teams that are like going the wrong direction today. The Bengals had a great chance to win a ball game. They did not, and they fell to 1-4. Teams are all over the map right now. And I think, Ed, what this did, and now, of course, the Commanders won another one. They look great. Giants even won, believe it or not, to improve to 2-3. Yeah. But what this does is, it just keeps the Cowboys' hopes alive. What they're trying to do right now is to win enough games to slowly get some players back, and then hopefully later in the year be in position to make a playoff run. So I would say they are in the part of the season that would be called survival. And tonight was the ultimate survival test. You said it. It's near, against the Steelers, it's pretty much impossible to turn the ball over like they did and still find a way to win. So I don't know what you want to call that win. It's either a culture win. But again, it's that old joke, like in basketball, it's like good shot, good coach, bad coach. Like in that last moment, it's like McCarthy, good coach, McCarthy, awful coach. And everything's hanging in the balance.
You just know if they lose the game the way they played, that it was going to be all about Dak Prescott's failure, the highest paid quarterback in football, blowing another game with incessant turnovers. He had 3 himself. And it would have been started the conjecture about Mike McCarthy's future in the final year of his contract as the Cowboys are looking at, a 3-5 start and maybe, or a 2-5 start, maybe worse than that. Because when I watched the Thursday night game, I all of a sudden questioned whether they could beat Atlanta. I questioned whether they could beat Tampa Bay. Those teams are all on their schedule in addition to all the teams. They still have 2 games against the Commanders and 2 games against the Eagles. I'm not sure they can beat those teams. So yeah, I mean, this was a monumental win in that it deflects all of the negativity and criticism that would have been directed at Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones and everybody else. And instead you're looking at, oh my God, they've won 3 straight road games. They're 3-0 on the road for the first time since Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott were rookies. So pretty remarkable stuff. Do I think they're going to beat the Lions? No. Even though they might get Deron Bland back. Now, who's going to play on the defensive line? I have to assume Nealon's injury is fairly serious in that he never came back into the game, wasn't in the bench area. Tyler Guyton went down and with 9 minutes left in the second quarter, the rookie left tackle, he didn't come back. I actually thought that was beneficial to them because it seemed to me that Tyler Smith had a better chance of handling the other edge rusher, while they tried to help on the right side to try to help Terrence Steele with TJ Watt as much as they could. But they had backup offensive linemen in the game. So we talked about it, right? You're on the road, you're turning the football over, you're not scoring in the red zone. You have all kinds of injuries. You're behind against a team that's the number 2 scoring team in scoring defense in football. So yeah, I think for all those reasons, this is a significant win, as ugly as it was. And despite the fact they're only 3-2 and they have to come home and play the Lions, and then they have a bye week, and then they go to San Francisco, the team they can never beat.
Yeah, and you're right. Although San Francisco, does look vulnerable right now, and the Lions lost to the Buccaneers a couple of weeks ago. Did not exactly run away from a Cardinals team. The Cardinals team actually won today. There's some really interesting results around the league, so it's hard to say exactly who these teams are week to week. Lions did have a nice recent victory over the Seahawks, so I think you got to respect them. But at the same time, what the Cowboys have to do, Ed, is they've got to reestablish being a home team. They've gotten embarrassed a couple of times at home, and so this is going to be an opportunity. And again, we don't know. We'll have to see what's going to happen with Nealon. Ed, there's going to be. Jerry said he won't trade for anybody, but they need reinforcements. I guess there's a chance they could get Micah Parsons back. Ed, the earliest they would get DeMarcus Lawrence back, just as a reminder to our listeners, would be early November, correct?
Against the Eagles, he's on IR, so he's out for a minimum of 4 games, and tonight was the first of those.
Yeah. So that's it. But now, who else do they have coming back, Ed? Let's think about it. They could get some help from Deron Bland soon, and they could get some help from Kalen Carson. And our man was out there again tonight, 27. The guy Al Michaels won't say his name, and I won't either. But he was out there making some plays. But this was a team win, and it's a good night, a good moment for McCarthy, especially Ed. That was embarrassing for him. However long ago that was, that last year or 2 years ago, whenever that first time he went back to Green Bay, and they lost that game late. For him to go home with his parents and siblings or whoever else was, there was a bunch of people that were over at his house, and he took Dak and Cooper Rush home with him, and they had a big time. And he's extremely proud of his Pittsburgh heritage. So
he talked about it this week out there.
I think that probably meant even more to him with all that, as context.
Yeah, I asked him about the whole Pittsburgh aspect of this game and going back there with his starting quarterback and a chance to win, and how how people there embrace him. And he said the thing that he gets most often, considering him, I said, like, you're going back to this place where you grew up as a Steeler fan. You grew up a Steeler fan. Your whole family's Steeler fans. And you're going back wearing Cowboys logos. Everybody else back there hates the Cowboys, not only from the rivalry years that they played 3 Super Bowls against each other, but also the one time you won a Super Bowl, you denied it to the Steelers and Mike Tomlin. And how do they react to you back there? And he said, mostly they just say, if we had to lose a Super Bowl, we're glad we lost it to you because you're one of us. So he talked about the fraternal, nature of things in that regard. So, but yeah, I think this was I'm sure that it probably got lost on him in the moment. Like the biggest thing was that they won in these incredibly difficult circumstances, coming from behind on the last throw of the game. And so it probably took a few minutes before he could appreciate personally the satisfaction that he must have sensed ultimately. But yeah, like you said, it was a big win for the organization under the circumstances.
Yeah. And I did like the broadcast, their reaction, Ed. Oh, and by the way, we haven't really even stressed the point. I mean, you said that it's kind of funny about like maybe score touchdowns on 2 different days, but this whole weather thing and the lightning delay. I mean, it usually takes a lot to delay an NFL game, and it's usually like, I mean, it has to almost be a monsoon or lightning, and it was lightning event that was taking place. And so it's always interesting, Ed, because I think as journalists and longtime reporters, we're like, give us the time. When do you start? And yet the lightning, it just keeps kind of setting things back. So there was never
it's like closing the airport. Like they close the ramp, and every time there's lightning, it resets to start 30 more minutes.
Yeah. So,
and I was like, I thought football was played in bad weather. Like that's part of the allure. Nothing stops football.
Yeah, apparently lightning does, and they finally got that thing at 8:45 or close to 9 o'clock when they got
an hour and 25-minute delay, I think.
Yeah, but Ed, thank you. Look forward to waking up early tomorrow and watching you on ABC.
I can't recommend it this time.
Get some rest. Appreciate it. Cowboys will try to improve to 4-2. Well, if they beat the Lions, Ed, everybody will be riding high again, and what an opportunity that will be. But appreciate you, Ed, and appreciate your efforts here on the Doomsday podcast. I hope you will get sleep fast, as we say. Okay,
Tony Dorsett from Pittsburgh once told me, sometimes you got to sleep fast. Certainly applies tonight.
Oh, man. Tony D right there in that town playing for would have been
Pitt Panthers.
Yeah, but Johnny Majors, I believe, would have been the head coach.
Aliquippa High School.
That's right, man. The greatness. And the legacy lives on in Rico Dowdle.
23 instead of 33, but close.
No, just the performance, of course.
Yeah.
It is for Ed Werder and Mike Hamilton of the Rogue Media Network. It is, I'm Matt Mosley. Good night.
We are Rogue Media Sports. Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.